is now exactly 1300 hours. I think we're going to start with our deliberations. My name is Noko Masipa. I am a member of this Western Cape Provincial Parliament. I'm the chair of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Economic Development and Tourism. With that introduction, I am going to ask you members to introduce yourself. But before we do that, I am going to also announce the welcoming of our new member on this standing committee, Brendan Adams. Mr. Adams, please feel welcomed and thank you for joining us today in this committee. Over to you, members, to introduce yourself.
Afternoon, Chairperson. It's Dave Bryant, member of committee.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Khalil Brankes, member of the committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Dirk Wessels, member of the committee.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the welcoming. It's Stamworth Brendan Adams, member of the committee, and still fresh.
You don't look fresh. Eh?
On a point of order, Chair. On a point of order, Chair. On a point of order, Chair.
Greetings, colleagues. My name is Naomi Nkondlo. I'm a member of the committee.
Good afternoon, Noma French Mbombo.
Thank you, honorable members. I think with that said, we do correct, and with me is Shireen and Nongfundo that are supporting this committee. Over to you, HOD and Minister, to introduce your officials.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Dr. Mukhale will introduce the rest of the team, but thank you for this opportunity.
Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson, and good afternoon to you and to the members of the committee. Mukhale Sebopeta, I'm the head of department. I'm joined by the acting DDG for Agricultural Research and Regulatory Services, Bongiso Matoti, and the Chief Director for Veterinary Services, Dr. Msiza, as well as the Director for Animal Health, Dr. Noluvuyo Magkatla, who will actually take us through the presentation when the time is right. Thank you, Chair, and we appreciate the opportunity to come and brief you on the issues of foot and mouth disease in the Western Cape. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. With that said, Minister Ivan Meyer, Dr. Svupeta, and your team, really thank you for appearing before us today and for briefing the committee on this important matter of the foot and mouth disease outbreak. And I also want to welcome the media present on this platform. Honorable members, to me, this demonstrates that the minister and his department take the members of this multi-party committee seriously when it comes to matters of oversight. With that said, really, I want to thank you, Minister, and the department for really insisting that we meet and you provide us with regards to what is happening with this matter. Members, in a few weeks' time, this committee will be presented with the budget for consideration and approval. And I'm quite certain that the minister and his department have included this FMD challenge in their planned budget allocations. But with that said, members, I hope that the presentation today and the planned budget allocation will address, amongst others, surveillance and monitoring, outbreak response and control, disease reporting, movement control and permitting, vaccination and dipping services, export certification. This represents some of the key responsibilities that fall within the provincial spheres of government. With that said, I hand over to the Minister to proceed with the presentation. Over to you, Minister. Minister, you are muted.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think it's very important that we brief the Standing Committee on the state of foot and mouth disease. As you know, this is a national disaster. It has not been declared a disaster. It has been classified as a disaster. I think people know that in terms of the Disaster Management Act, there is a big difference. And what we have done immediately, we have decided to treat foot and mouth disease in the context of the scale of the problem in the country in the same way as we have treated COVID, and we have put up some structures to regularly inform, and Dr. Mogale and the team will elaborate on that, but I want to thank Dr. Mogale and Dr. Magatla, who has been doing an outstanding job, world-class, in terms of the work that they have done. And I really want to thank Dr. Magatla because she has been inundated by requests and farmers and people, and she has performed exceptionally well. And also Dr. Mogale has taken this personal responsibility in addition to all his work that he is currently doing. And I want to thank him for his leadership in this regard. And I now hand over to him, and the two of us are happy to answer any questions, as well as Dr. Magatla and the team. So I hand over to the head of the department, Dr. Mogale.
Thank you so much, Minister. I think you have set the scene correctly. I'm going to hand over to Dr. Magatla to take us through, it's about 30 slides or so, and then we will then be able to respond to whatever questions that the members would like to pose to the department. Dr. Magatla.
Thank you, HOD and the Minister. Good afternoon to the Honorable Chair and the members of the Standing Committee. Good afternoon to the Minister and the HOD, to the CEOs on the platform, and to all my colleagues on the platform. Thank you, sir. The briefing on FMD. FMD has been a problem within South Africa, but it has been limited to higher up north, mainly to Limpopo and Mpumalanga provinces because of their proximity to Kruger National Park. And the question is, for most people, what is FMD? It is a highly contagious viral disease of cloven-hoofed animals, and it mainly affects cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, and mostly wildlife. And in wildlife, it is mainly limited to buffaloes. A reason why it has been limited to the northern provinces, because all the buffaloes most of the buffalo within the Kruger National Park are infected with FMD, and they harbor the virus, transmitting it to livestock, which can show clinical signs. And as said, it is caused by the FMD virus. Why is it so important in most of the countries? Because it's an important disease worldwide, not just in South Africa. It's because it causes major economic losses and threatens livestock production, food supply, and rural livelihoods. Economic losses, because with any production animals, with the lesions caused on the mouth and in the feet, it limits them from eating and digesting the food. So animals refrain from eating, losing weight, and the younger animals are usually affected with acute or chronic congestive heart failure. You will see death mostly in the younger calves, where they will die mostly because of congestive heart failure. It will cause fever within 2 to 3 days and a sharp drop in the milk production. With the blisters in the mouth and on the feet, that means it cannot eat and it cannot move around on the pastures swiftly. The next thing about it is that it spreads rapidly via animals, people, and vehicles. The virus causes a droplet which can attach to animals, it can attach to feet, and it can attach to the corners of the vehicle, and it can spread by wind. It spreads, because it spreads by wind and vehicles, it spreads rapidly across farms, districts, and provinces. We all know by now that most of the South African provinces have been affected. One infected premise can pose large and external cost on many. If a farm is infected, you have to quarantine the area, specifically the 3-kilometer radius where you can't move anything, and moving to the 10-kilometer radius, which you quarantine mostly for surveillance. That's the movement bans and trade restrictions. Whenever you report FMD, then immediately the countries will ban your exports. You can continue. This is the current spread of FMD within the country. I believe it's a bit underestimated. There is more areas where it has spread currently, including the Northern Cape and a further spread within Western Cape. Thank you. We are the signatories of the World Organization for Animal Health, meaning that most of the countries within the world are signatories, mainly for exports and for guidelines on managing the diseases. And we are currently, we currently reported more than 1,040 outbreaks to WOA since 2019, and only 28 of those outbreaks have been closed, and some of them are still open within WOA. Can continue. Coming back home to the Western Cape. Western Cape has been, in Western Cape, we have reported outbreaks of foot and mouth. The first outbreak came in on last year in November, around the 4th of November, and that was in Gauteng. That particular outbreak was due to illegal movement of animals from one of the provinces. And we were notified when that outbreak was, when animals were further moved to Free State. The outbreak in Gauteng was treated vigorously, with all the animals vaccinated in the area quarantine, 10-kilometer radius quarantine, and later on, the animals in that farm slaughtered. And we are currently in the process of closing that outbreak. But on the day when we were finalizing our slaughter in the outbreak, the following day, an outbreak was reported, or a case was reported in Mbekweni. That started just another era within Western Cape. Soon enough, more outbreaks were reported in around Khayelitsha, Kalkfontein, Mfuleni, and Makaza. And later on, more outbreaks were reported in Mossel Bay area. And the outbreak in Mossel Bay area has been reported and spread to about 4 farms in that area. Further to that, within the western side, another outbreak was reported around the West Coast area in the Swartland, which has further spread to 4 farms in that particular area. You can continue. That is then a closer focus of the 240 we are having on the West Coast and on the eastern side on the Garden Road. Thank you. How did we respond to the outbreak, or the areas of how we respond to, how did we respond to the outbreak? We responded to the outbreak by strategizing, and out of that, the 21-point plan was put together to cap after the consultation with different stakeholders. And that 21-point plan is divided to 5 focus areas. The major 4 focus areas is what is the way of controlling outbreak. The movement control. Movement control includes strict restrictions, requirements for movement controls, and documentations. That is done in line with the Gazette, which was with the document which was gazetted last year in June. The permitting and the control. With the permitting protocols, we are in the process of appointing Agri-Western Cape, or of signing an MOU with the Agri-Western Cape, who will be assisting us as the permitting agency. The movement monitoring by law enforcement, traffic officers, and SAP. All those have been trained by our officials in different municipalities, and then compliance and enforcement, that is also done in coordination with traffic officers. And then the monitoring and surveillance and traceability. That is one area which is not negotiable, whether you've got an outbreak or you don't have an outbreak. But in this case, we have enhanced monitoring of high-risk activities like the auctions, speculators, peri-urban livestock keepers. And then we have passive surveillance. By passive surveillance, we mean that each and everybody who sees clinical signs of foot and mouth should report them. The abattoir monitoring, checking of the clinical signs within the abattoir before slaughter and after slaughter. The clinical and targeted active surveillance, that is done by the vets. Whenever a vet sees clinical signs of FMD, and he reports it to us. And at the same time, they take blood samples which they send through for testing. Forward and backward tracing of in-contact animals. If animals are diagnosed of FMD, we need to trace all the movements from the infected farm forward and backward. And the monitoring of buffalo heads. Buffalo heads, as we said, they are the carriers of FMD. They do not show clinical signs. They just carry the virus and spread it. So we need to monitor them. The protocols. The third leg is the protocols. Protocols, we are looking at all the protocols. Contingency plans, we already have contingency plans for FMD, but with the outbreak, we had to put together contingency plans for the districts. Communication protocol, which was set up by our communication officer. Bylaw enforcement, we are working with the municipalities to try and assist us with the bylaws. Monitoring of wildlife, I've already alluded to that under monitoring and surveillance, and FMD contingency plan, I have already alluded to that. Biosecurity promotion, that is what we continue doing right through our professional lives. And we are currently working on the biosecurity baseline assessment within the province. And the recovery plan, what do you do then when you have seen the clinical signs of FMD and confirmed it? We vaccinate immediately. We vaccinate all animals in that particular farm and animals within the 3-kilometer zone. Now that there has been an instruction to vaccinate the whole herd in South Africa, we are vaccinating almost all animals in the area without even confirming the disease, as long as we have been informed of the clinical signs. And after you have vaccinated, you continue with the process of quarantining that particular area. And when the quarantine is lifted, when there are no clinical signs of the disease anymore, later on you lift the quarantine. You clean and disinfect. There is a process which you take first, that is activation of the jog. FMD awareness and education is continuous. We are continuing with that right through. Thank you, Sipho. How is our strategy? Our current strategy is risk-based. We will remember that there was a ministerial task team, which was formed by the Minister of Agriculture at the national level. That task team has been assisting us with forming and with identifying some of the risk areas, high risk area, medium risk, and low risk areas within South Africa. And having said that, we rely on the model which is designed by epidemiology, GIST at national level, but we cannot only depend on that. We are also using epidemiologists within the province and also our stakeholders within the province. Within that, there are heat maps which are generated. Heat maps show the areas where the virus is concentrated and where there's a potential spread of that virus. And you can continue. That is the map as it is determined by the ministerial task team. From that map, I think there's been quite a lot of changes up to now, because Free State has been seen as now a primary area where the virus is spreading very highly. And Western Cape is more turning towards yellow, especially on the southern, on the 2 focal areas, which I mentioned earlier. We've had vaccine allocation. It's been indicated that the minister, the strategy, the South African strategy, is that we vaccinate almost 80% of the cattle herd within the country. And the response to that was the procurement of vaccine through national department. All vaccines are currently procured centrally by national department and distributed through Onderstepoort Biological Products, which is our national key institution for vaccine production. So up to now, what has been distributed to Western Cape is about 62,000 doses of vaccine. Starting from the top, we have received about 1,000 vaccines, which were 1,500 doses of vaccines, which were donated by 2 of the provinces on our initial outbreak, and 20,000, which was from Botswana vaccine, which was issued during the start of an outbreak. We know that ARC has started producing vaccine again, and out of their first batch of produced vaccine, we received 600 doses, which were used on our index farm in George. And then we received about 40,000 doses of biogenesis vaccine. Out of that 40,000 doses, 10,000 doses went to State Vet George area, that is in the Garden Route area. 10,000 doses went to Boerland, which is the area around Cape Winelands, and then the other city of Cape Town, and the other 20,000 went to Malmesbury State Vet area, and the Malmesbury State Vet area would include Swartland and some of the areas within the West Coast. We have since then created a dashboard in the province, and from that dashboard, there has been an instruction that all farms outside the controlled area should apply for vaccination of their animals. So up to now, we have had several farms which have applied, and we use private vets to administer that vaccine. And we currently have about 29 private vets who are approved to assist us. We have had 20 reported cases. At the moment, we report cases, any case which is reported by someone from as having suspected clinical signs of FMD, we take it as a case, and then we take blood samples, send them to OVR for testing. Out of the 20, 8 has been confirmed as positive. We have vaccinated out of the 62,000 doses of vaccine. We have used up to yesterday 49,000 doses of vaccine. Yesterday, we received a second batch of vaccine. That is the vaccine which is produced by a Turkish company, Dolvet, and it has been imported into South Africa. 100,000 doses of that vaccine. And we have already, it arrived yesterday, late in the evening. We have planned on distributing the vaccine, and the plan for distributing vaccine is informed by the risk in the areas. Some of the areas which have been identified as high risk is areas where there is a high concentration of intensively fed dairy animals. Reason being that all intensively fed animals, they spread the disease as quick as possible. They are under stress whilst during milking and even during feeding. And also The dairy animals on the garden route area have been identified, just being their dairy animals again graze close to each other, even if they are on pasture feeding. And we are also then looking at farms around the outbreak area. So this particular batch of vaccine will be distributed to Cape Winelands, West Coast, and Garden Route. How we identified those areas, we identified them together with MPO, the Milk SA, Agri Western Cape, and also using our private vets and state vets in the area who work in those areas. So the allocation are as displayed on the screen currently. And out of that, you can see that we've got almost 115,000 doses of the vaccine. We already have a lot of that vaccine distributed already. The private vets were definitely in need of the vaccine. Can continue. And the main question again is on how are we responding to the disease and how are we going to move forward with managing this particular disease. The disease is mainly, we are currently vaccinating, but the major ways of managing and monitoring disease is through movement control and biosecurity. Those are the primary ways of managing FMD and trying to get rid of FMD, limiting the spread of FMD. So now that we already have the disease, what we do is the immediate standstill in the control areas. We are trying to use all the animals which are under the control area can only move on a permit system, and the essential movement, what we mean by that, only movements which are allowed from those areas are straight to the abattoir. Otherwise, you cannot move animals to any place. And then we've got control points, that is our roadblocks, assisted by traffic department, SAPS, and law enforcement from the municipal areas. And the biosecurity, we promote controlled entry and exit with or without a disease. Dedicated zone teams. The one way of biosecurity while you have an outbreak is that if you have been on an infected farm, you need to stay away from any other farm for 3 days, and you can go to a farm on the 4th day after being on an infected farm. And then vehicle disinfection stations, all vehicles which get into and out of the farm need to be disinfected as they come in and as they leave the farm. The PPE protocols, you have to change all your working clothes into the farm. As you get into the farm, change into working clothes. And as you leave the farm, leave your working clothes inside the farm, and you cannot live with them. And then the third leg of monitoring and management is the vaccination strategy. Vaccination strategy, I have already alluded to the fact that if the farm is positive or if it is having clinical signs, we vaccinate it immediately. And we perform what we refer to as ring vaccination. Ring vaccination is a 3-kilometer zone area and then the 10-kilometer zone area. We have to vaccinate those areas immediately. And then within the vaccination strategy, we've got what is called serotype matching. Not all vaccine can be effective against a disease which they are produced for. It depends on the strain which is circulating on the ground, what we refer to as the field strain. If your field strain doesn't match the strain which is on the vaccine, there are chances that that vaccine will not work on the ground or will not induce immunity. So there is that one area where you need to serotype match. Cold chain management, we are currently on the heat. There's a very high heat within the province, temperatures going to 40. This is not the best environment to vaccinate. because the vaccine, you need to use it keep it between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius right through. And as you are using it outside, keep it within that environment. Batch tracking and documentation, all vaccines. We are currently using vaccines which are not registered within the country. We need to track the batches and document where we used the vaccine within and which animals have received which vaccine. And lastly, what is not negotiable is surveillance. Surveillance is right through during the disease and
we seem to have lost you, or is it only me?
Oh, it went dead. I was wondering, what did I press?
HOD?
Chair.
HOD? Minister?
Yes, we are here, Chair.
Okay, we seem to have lost connection with the director.
Okay,
For the
we are back.
presentation.
Please
Okay.
go ahead.
You can proceed.
thank you, Chair. Can I start at surveillance?
Yes, you can proceed, ma'am.
Yes. I was just mentioning the surveillance. Surveillance, we continue with surveillance. That's something which we do right through. We are forever actively looking for diseases, including FMD. And in this case, I have already alluded to active, targeted abattoir and auction surveillance, and then passive reporting. We have put together, or we have set up a hotline, which was launched about 2 or 3 weeks ago, linked to an email in the department. Thank you. This is some evidence, one of where the minister, can you continue? Continue. Okay. This is the evidence where the minister visited some of the private vets vaccinating in one of the farms. That's some of the evidence where the HOD visited some of the private vets vaccinating in the farms.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be talking about the economic implications of actually FMD. It's clear. Sorry. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. I'm going to be talking about the economic implications of FMD. Livestock actually being one of the significant subsectors within the economy of the Western Cape. It's clear FMD will actually have severe implications for the livestock sector. And not only that, it will actually have implications for the entire economy actually of the Western Cape, because agriculture is one piece actually of the puzzle of the entire economy. So if you actually shock one side, unfortunately, it actually gets to have implications actually to the other areas actually of the economy. But before talking actually about FMD in particular, we felt it is actually important that we actually put, the contribution of agriculture into context, where the sector that is primary agriculture combined with agri-processing accounts for about 10% of the Western Cape economy. We see this sector actually growing quite significantly in the third quarter of 2025, where it grew about 27% year on year. And in terms actually of employment, the contribution, of the primary sector combined with processing led actually to about 313,000 jobs in the fourth quarter, which is actually about 11% of all the jobs within the province. In terms of rural footprint, the agricultural sector is one of the most competitive sectors in 5 actually of the rural districts actually of the province, with the exception of the Cape Winelands. And it is the second most competitive in tourism and agritourism related activities. With regards to exports, the 10 the top 10 products which were actually exported from this province were all originating from agriculture. And in terms actually of the research that was conducted within this department, there was a calculation that was done that if you can actually have a 5% increase or a decrease in agricultural exports, about 22,951 jobs will actually be affected. And I think it's important also to mention that about 66% of the value of Western Cape agricultural production, it actually gets exported. And also it's important to highlight that the Western Cape contributes more than 58% to our national agricultural exports to the world. And zooming in directly to the livestock industry, the statistics reveal that the value of actually livestock subsector in the Western Cape has been steadily increasing over the past 7 years. And in 2024, the industry was projected to be about 13.3 billion. And approximately 60% of this is actually coming from dairy, and then 30% from the slaughter of sheep, cattle and pigs, while 11% is actually coming from wool, which is actually produced by sheep. However, the current FMD is clear it will really create significant disruptions in the livestock economy. And as I actually already, alluded, the livestock sector plays a crucial role in the Western Cape, but it's even more so, in the South African economy, accounting actually for the largest share of the agricultural economy. The livestock industry in the Western Cape is actually perceived to be employing nearly about 50,000 individuals, which is actually quite a significant number. And in terms actually of our exports, in 2025, most actually of our exports were actually from live animals. That is actually mainly your cattle and sheep and goats, and also followed by milk products. But there is also a large contingent actually of raw hides and skins, both actually coming from the cattle, and including actually the game in there, that is actually buffalo, but there is also quite a contingent coming actually from sheep, and in particular, lamb in this regard. But there's been also a significant share, of those exports actually coming from wool. And if I actually have to, indicate in terms actually of the growth, the sector actually has been, the subsector has been increasing about 10% in terms actually of the exports, with the growth rate actually that is actually look at 5% over the past, few years. If I'm talking about the total in terms actually of the exports actually from animal products, we actually have exported about 628 million in 2025. And in terms actually of where our products actually are going to, we actually have extracted data from our veterinary export system, which clearly indicates that most actually of our products are going to countries like Namibia, Kuwait, Jordan, United Emirates. And I think it's actually also important to highlight that the current, crisis actually in the Middle East will actually definitely actually have an impact if you get to look, into some actually of the countries where we actually are exporting to. Of course, some products are actually going to China, the United States of America, Denmark, Zambia, Ghana, and Saudi Arabia. Is also on the top 10 list. It's not all the products, but we've just actually, not all the countries, but we've just selected actually the top 10 of where our products are actually going to. And Chair, as I actually started actually at the beginning, it's clear if we actually are not able to control the FMD, it will actually have significant impact actually for economic growth. And of course, it will have actually severe implications for jobs in this province, and especially, affecting the rural livelihoods, because this is a sector that is actually mainly in the rural districts actually of the Western Cape. And I think that's actually all from my side. Chair, I think you can perhaps maybe just conclude with the final slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. This is our final slide, just to indicate that we have established a war room which for us was very important. It's a multi-stakeholder structure that is comprising of course, ourselves, the red meat producers organization, the Milk SA, as well as Agri Western Cape. And the reason for that really is to ensure that there is alignment and that we always agree in terms of the risk-based approach, and particularly when it comes to vaccine prioritization. You can imagine what happens when you've got limited tools and the problem is big, that everybody begin to believe that their area is quite important. But we are guided by the risk-based strategy and also by the national strategy on how we're going to deal with FMD as a country. We presage that we'll vaccinate 80% of the provincial herd by the December of this year. And of course, we have also engaged with the private veterinarians, as my team indicated, and so far we've got 29 of those that are enlisted to support us. We have also engaged with the livestock auctioneers because we wanted to get their commitment in terms of heightened biosecurity, because in the end, the virus does not move unless people move it. And animal move the virus, and we are the ones that move animals. So we needed to get that commitment. And I think we are quite in a good space, because what we see is that the industry is beginning to self-regulate, which for us is important. Just one last point I want to mention is that the Western Cape government has made available 100 million rands to assist us in terms of procurement of vaccines. And as you know, we can only do that with the guidance and support of the national department. We are constantly pursuing that agenda, both with the DG level, but also at the ministerial level and the ministerial task team, to get their concurrence that we're able to then procure our own vaccines to be able to vaccinate. I think yesterday you've seen, probably today in the media, about the 100,000 doses that had come our way, and I think that is really a symbol of what we can achieve when we're working closely with the private sector. We did not have to fly to Pretoria to get our vaccines, but somebody through the war room was able to then engage through the industry stakeholders and get us a facility that delivered 100,000 vaccines here to us. So the list that was provided in terms of where we're going to be vaccinating these 100,000, behind that list, there are a list of farms with number of animals and private vets that are going to be doing that, but also with the state veterinarians who are going to ensure that we vaccinate as is necessary. I think the last point to say to the members is that as a department and as a government, we are committed and completely determined and resolute that we will beat FMD, more so because of the ecosystem that has been created in the province, and that we're not doing this on our own. We do it jointly with the stakeholders, and we are quite certain that we'll beat and break the back of FMD. Thank you, Chairperson. That is our input, and I hand over to my minister. Thanks.
Thank you. Over to you, Minister. I know that past 2 you need to leave for cabinet meeting. You are welcome to proceed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mogale and Dr. Magatla and Bongeshwa. Both of them, they did an outstanding presentation. I want to thank them for their work. For the committee, what we have decided in terms of dealing with foot and mouth disease, we have decided to follow what we call a whole of society approach, involve all the various sectors of society. We've also decided to use a whole of government approach. That's why we work with the local government, provincial government, and the national government. And I want to thank Dr. Mogale and Dr. Magatla. They are frequently in touch with the DG. The other day, Dr. Mogale was 3 o'clock in the morning on a phone with the national DG, who's in Brazil. and there are daily calls that are also made by Dr. Magatla to the National Department and to Honest the Poor. So thank you very much for the whole of government approach. But talking about the whole of government approach, Dr. Mogale did indicate to you that he has established a war room. That war room meet every Tuesday, around about, I think, 11 o'clock or so. And then in the afternoon, we have also established a institutional structure every Tuesday from 5 o'clock till 6 o'clock. We brief all 30 mayors and 30 municipal managers about the state of foot and mouth disease. We also ask the 5 district mayors in that meeting to indicate to us what is the state of foot and mouth disease in the various jogs. I'm happy to report that one jog, for example, the Garden route, they have 24 hours road blocks. They have also 7 permanent road blocks and 4 mobile road blocks that travel, and we have also FMD checkpoints. So every district mayor on a Tuesday give us some feedback. We raise those issues, they discuss these issues, and we find the solution to the problem. In addition, as Dr. Mogale said, this problem is so big. We have about 500,000 cattle and livestock. So we cannot do this all on our own. So we are working very closely with the industry role players. And we've also targeted informal areas because, as you know, informal areas, the cattle is walking around. So we have also targeted them. For example, in Vasantakra, we vaccinated there more than 400 on a Sunday morning, because 3 kilometers away from that, you have big commercial farmers. And one of the big commercial farmers, we've also recently vaccinated by using private vets, about 4,000 there by Ingezind Dairy. I was personally there, and I've seen what is happening. But we also do some precautionary work, as Dr. Magatla indicated. We've also established a FMD hotline and the FMD email address. And as members of this committee, you are also members of the provincial parliament. Please make use, because you, in your constituencies, people also contact you, and you may please refer them to their hotline. They can also send us an email. They will get a reply. Last night at 9 o'clock, Dr. Mogale and I went to the airport. He facilitated through his networks in partnership with the industry. We have collected at the airport from the plane a private jet that was facilitated by the industry and through Shoprite. We have collected, instead of waiting for the national government and Honest the Poor to deliver it. Dr. Mogale arranged that a private jet collected, left yesterday around about 2 o'clock Cape Town, and came back 9 o'clock in the evening with all 100,000 boxes of the vaccine. And I want to thank the partnership that he has established. Today, in fact, last night, they also took all those 100,000 vaccines to the Provincial Veterinary Lab. Now, you know that the Provincial Veterinary Lab at Elsenburg is accredited as a level 2 vet. And to test for FMD, you need a level 3 accreditation. So we wrote to the National Minister to come to visit our lab to give us a level 3 accreditation. That work was facilitated by Dr. Magatla and Dr. Mogale, and the National Department has subsequently sent people very fast to come and inspect for the accreditation. So that process is underway, but I couldn't wait for that. I have also written to the Vice Chancellor and Director of the University of Stellenbosch, because they also have laboratories. So I've also asked them if we can use their laboratories, because we cannot wait for 3-4 days or 5 days for the test results from Honest the Poor. So this is what we have done. And also for us, it's very important that this morning we had the National Minister, the Federal Minister of Germany, who is responsible for agriculture. He brought also the president of the Veterinary Association from Germany, and they are here today, and they've also visited our vet to see how they can support us in fighting. And last night, Minister John Steenhuisen signed an agreement or a letter of intent to work closely with us in South Africa in terms of fighting the foot and mouth disease. So as members of this committee, you are also frequently getting requests or phone calls or WhatsApp messages please make contact with us or refer them to the FMD hotline. There's also an email address. In the various regions, there are certain vets that are responsible for certain regions, and you can also find that information on the website of the Western Cape Department of Agriculture, and we're very happy to brief you about such matters because in your various constituencies, are also livestock, and we would very much like to assist you by giving you the correct advice. So thank you, Chair. I'm now handing back to you, but this is a problem that is big, and we are looking forward to get some assistance from the international community in terms of dealing with this, so that we can deal with this matter also, because our whole country cannot depend on one laboratory in Gauteng to do the test. This will be a disaster, and that's why we make contingency planning. Dr. Mogale is also considering to advise the cabinet whether we should pursue our own route to procure vaccines, but that is not just simply easy matter. We are giving due consideration. There's a lot of work that we need to do in this particular regard, but when we are ready, we will brief the committee thoroughly about it, because this crisis is deep, and we want to protect the livestock of both commercial farmers, small-scale farmers, black farmers, everybody. We treat this as one industry. It's the livestock industry. Both commercial and small-scale farmers are our targets in terms of the risk-based model and approach that Dr. Magatla explained. Signing back to Parliament and to the chair of this committee. Back to you, Mr. Masipa.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, HOD, Dr. Svupetsa and Dr. Magatla, as well as Mayor Bongiso for the presentation. Honorable members, there you have it. I'm going to allow hands for questioning. I note the hand of Honorable Bryant. Are there other hands? The hand of Honorable Ngonjo. Those are the two hands. Over to you, colleagues. I see the third hand. Let's see. There is a hand of Honorable Adams. I see Ilse Schoenrath. Is Ilse from the media, or are you a member of parliament or member of the public? Can I ask Shireen to just establish? With that said, can we continue in that order, Honorable Bryant?
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you so much to Minister Meyer and all the officials for such a comprehensive presentation. I think many of us, or most of us, aren't as au fait with all the specific details around foot and mouth, and I've certainly learned something myself this afternoon. And I've also learned that our provincial government really takes this crisis seriously, and it really has been reassuring to hear the steps that have been taken from the province to assist, and even going as far as procuring our own air transport in order to receive those vaccines. Chair, I know the current minister at a national level inherited quite a difficult set of circumstances when he took over. That included a depleted bank of vaccines, a large dependence on imported vaccinations, and obviously a collapsed infrastructure around Onderstepoort and many of the other vaccine facility, that vaccine facility and some of the other issues related to that. But I think one of the key issues is a loss of expertise. I know many of our vets, we've heard this previously, have left South Africa to go elsewhere. And I would like to find out how much of a challenge that is going forward, and whether or not the minister, provincial minister, Meyer, is confident that we are going to be able to find ways to train new vets and attract some of the vets who have left to come back and assist. Also, in terms of the procurement and manufacture of our own local vaccines, I've seen some steps have now been taken. But will we get to a point where we won't have to rely in the main on imported vaccines from other countries, taking into consideration how important agriculture is to our local economies? But again, a big thank you to the Minister, to his team, for really going above and beyond and for working hand in glove with the National Department and the National Minister, who I know have also had serious challenges due to the issues that they inherited when they first took over. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Bryant. Honourable Ngontlo, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure whether Member Bryant would like us to go there and have a discussion of the alleged takeover of the National Minister. Having said that, Chair, I just want clarity. On the FMD, the slide number 3, it indicates that in 2025, the number of cases, if one reads them correct, maybe you can explain how the map, what's the proper representation or reading of this map, because it shows 1 case in 2025 and 2 cases in 2026. Further, slide number 4 indicates reported cases, and I'm not sure these are cases of 2026 or 2025. It says 8 cases. And if you then consider the following slides, it says 20 cases, FMD reported cases are 20. And it then shows in the next map the outbreak areas, which more in the city of Cape Town. And I think the other one is around Mossel Bay, it's around the Garden Route. So one just wants to understand, you know, I think the other map talks about the epidemic centers. Maybe the department can just explain, you know, the numbers, just to understand, because also I think there is where the department mentions the number of cattle actually that are affected, which are, I think, I think the one slide says about 15,000 dairy cows. So maybe it's helping us to understand what's the definition of a case? You know, when you say a case, is it an affected animal? You know, it's important for me to understand that also in relation to the vaccine allocations and distribution in terms of the numbers that are there. I think on one slide that indicates, you know, the various areas where the vaccinations would or had taken place. So I think it's just one thing I just wanted to understand, just as a first issue. The second one, Chair, I'm also interested. There is a outcry of farmers around the very logic of state-controlled vaccination, which I think is in the Animal Health Act. And perhaps one is interested to understand that in the, because there is even an issue about a case, some of the farmers actually taking government to court around them wanting also to have access to vaccines, but also to administer the vaccines. So I just want to understand whether in the provincial context, and especially with Agri Western Cape being a permitting thing, I think there's a term that they used, being a permitting agency or appointed as a permitting agency. What exactly are the discussions around this particular issue on the industry in the province, regarding this particular matter or stalemate between industry and government on administering this vaccine? The third one would be, given that this particular FMD, as presented by Doc, would have been picked up in the province even last year, to where we are, what would have been the management put, from the province, in trying to curtail the vaccine spread to where we are, because one is interested whether there is an increase of this FMD, which was already spotted in 2025, to where we are this year, and what would have happened in terms of management thereof between 2025 and 2026, where we are at this point. So I just want to understand those issues for now. And perhaps lastly, with what Minister was raising, which I think is one of the issues that I've been raising, is the strategy of including what is termed peri-urban livestock keepers, because majority of these peri-urban livestock, which some of us will call informal farmers, have not necessarily in municipalities, and I would be interested to get clarity around what is the work being done about bylaws, because many of these informal farmers in the different peri-urban areas, the reality of the matter is that they don't have good relations with municipalities, and municipalities do not even service them. Instead, some of them would only be met by law enforcement. Actually, we're told in Tembaletu the other time that what they find is law enforcement just impounding their stock without even communicating with them. So how is that particular area, of informal or peri-urban livestock keepers being managed, and what is the process given the current rollout? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Adams, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. Allow me to thank the Honourable Minister for doing a great work with fighting this disease amongst the animals. I've noted that the Minister has spoken about the small farmers in Suncral. I would just like to point out, and for the Minister to note also, that there's a group of small farmers that was evicted from the area where they were farming in Pakkersdorp, and they were evicted to next to the N2. It's on the way to the airport, and they also need assistance, and they also are facing now eviction from the municipality because they want to establish a graveyard there. So I just want the Minister also to note that they also need assistance. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Adams. Minister, my question relate to the first one relate to slide will be what? 14. On slide 14, the indications is that you received 100,000 doses, and what is needed is 115,252. In terms of dealing successfully with the issue of FMD and vaccination, literature tells us that 2 successive vaccination at least 2 weeks apart is needed. Can you maybe explain as to how the numbers were derived, whether the 2 successive vaccination is going to be applicable here in this regard? The second question, it relates to the informal areas that Honorable Adams talked to. And obviously the 3 kilometers, maybe just a bit of background from just for members to understand where exactly did we have this outbreak? Was it in the informal area or was it commercial area? And obviously, you know, how that 3 kilometer determination is being made. Because in some instances, like you mentioned, the commercial farm, obviously there is a border and the other one is having cattle on the other side and the other one is obviously having bordering on the other side, having cattle and so forth. Just to understand the determination of when do you really stop vaccinating in that particular area if there are obviously, you know, number of farms bordering. And again, on the informal head, your challenge is that they're roaming all over. And obviously, you know, when you have to decide on the 3 kilometers, it's a question of how then do you start your 3 kilometers? As we know that once you vaccinate one, then you start infecting the rest of the head. I do understand that you want to really make sure that herd immunity is achieved in all the activities that are taking place right now. The normal standard is that you know, you achieve a 70 herd immunity. I think the question is what informs the 80% herd immunity that we are talking about. And maybe with that, Dr. Magadla, if you can just provide members with regards to the amount of livestock, cattle in the Western Cape, and what you have achieved to date, and how many must still be vaccinated as such. So the other question obviously relates to the 100 million that has been allocated by the provincial government. I think key question here is that how much has been used to date in that regard in terms of purchasing the current vaccines that you have got in store, DG. The next question will obviously relate to selling. You know, the question that often I picked up in the media is a question of how long do you wait before you sell once you're vaccinated, you know? And I think if that can be provided, clarity there, that would be great, so that we will also be able to answer some of these questions. One of the successful vaccination was conducted in Europe, in the European Union territory in the 80s, and they managed to achieve, you know, their success or their freedom of FMD free zone in 1991. Maybe the question is, has the department or the government been engaged with European Union as to what their success were? And maybe, you know, this question might not really be, you will not really maybe be able to answer. It's a national question, but the question is, what is the time frame in terms of when do we aim to achieve a freedom of FMD status in South Africa? And I think the big challenge here with the foot and mouth disease is obviously post-vaccination surveillance, you know. And I think Honorable Bryant did talk about, you know, the issues of capacity. Do we have enough capacity to ensure that, you know, the post-vaccination surveillance is taking place on a regular basis? And maybe the last point to DG is maybe that will come in the resolution to just share all the various hotlines in terms of members being able to disseminate to their various constituency in this regard. With that said, really thank you very much, Minister, DG, Dr. Magadla, for all the work that you are doing. Members of the media, I am sure Minister will make time to engage you, but if you do have pressing questions, please, I know Ilse from the Herald Media I've asked Honorable Vessel to take your question so that he can field it. The process is that if you are really coming to this kind of engagement, is that the request to pose questions must be done in advance and approved by the chairperson. But for now, I'm going to hand over to the minister to answer the questions that were posed by members. But the media, you are welcome to also, host a media session with the minister as well as the DG. We as members of parliament, we are always available to also engage you and provide our answers to your media questions that you might have. Over to you, Minister and DG.
Thank you very much to the committee, and thank you for the various questions. The issue of veterinary training, if we look at the Constitution, Schedule 5 of the Constitution of South Africa, that states specifically that veterinary services is a provincial mandate, except the training of vets, which is, in terms of the current Constitution, a responsibility of the national government, and we therefore cannot train vets here. So do we have capacity? Do we have enough? Well, we shall be guided by when I spoke to the minister today from Germany and to his chief professor dealing with animal health through their veterinary laboratories, they have indicated to us that they like a system that they call the regionalization. Now, regionalization means let every region also be in charge of veterinary services, procurement, training, all of that, but that they have a federal system. That's why they can do that. We do not have such a system, and our Constitution does not allow us to do some veterinary training. Is there a need for more veterinary training? Absolutely, yes. Especially, I think, in KwaZulu-Natal. I would also say in places like the Free State, and then perhaps Eastern Cape or the Western Cape, I would say we need more such facilities. Well, if you look at what is happening in South Africa, Mr. Bryant, we have about 60 to 70 vets per million population, whereas the norm is about, you must have between 200 and 400 vets per million population. So we are heavily under-resourced in terms of global standards for veterinary services. In fact, we are having about 25% under the recommended number of veterinarians. So that is a big problem that we currently face in South Africa. Well, I think Mr. Bryant is also the chair of the Environmental Affairs Committee, given the 10 global risks and the various diseases, as well as the issues of the drought. I think we are going to face more and more of some such problems. To Mr. Brendan Adams, welcome to this parliament. This is one of the best parliaments, and we welcome also your contribution in our Western Cape Provincial legislature. I have been to Pakkelsdorp. We were going to do something else other than FMD. I went with the state veterinary technicians from George, as well as the SPCA in that area, to Pakkelsdorp. You know, there's also a lot of people that are having horses. I'm not talking about foot and mouth disease. I'm now talking about horses. We wanted to go and do some dipping and other requirements for the horses. Nothing to do with FMD. They have just made the request, but the day we went there, it was raining, so we couldn't do that. But your issue, Mr. Brendan, is now about the small-scale farmers in Pakkelsdorp. I think the team here will take note of that and communicate it to Dr. Liana, who is our state vet for George. So we certainly would like to also to assist those people. Then I think there are some questions, Mr. Norco, and that you've directed to the technical people. You ask questions about the 3-kilometer radius, some of the clinical science to Mr. Brendan Adams. When we hear that there are people having or animals having foot and mouth disease, we sent out a vet the vet look at for clinical signs, and in some cases, if it is roaming animals, even if it does not have clinical signs, we vaccinate. That is exactly what we did, for example, in Versantekraal. There were no clinical signs, but we nevertheless decided this is a time to vaccinate, and we've done it also in some other places. If there are clinical signs, obviously, the vets do some samples and they send it to the laboratory in Pretoria, but we don't wait for the results of the laboratory. If they see some clinical signs, we vaccinate. So that is also particularly for the small-scale farmers. Also, the 3-kilometer radius, the 10-kilometer radius, the vets can speak to that. The issue of the roaming animals, for example, in the city of Cape Town, the city of Cape Town has established an FMD jog in Goodwood. I have visited it. That jog is specifically for foot and mouth disease and specifically for roaming animals that are walking in the informal settlements. They are using, for example, drones technology. They're using body cams and cameras on the vehicles from the city law enforcement. So whenever they see any informal settlement across the city of Cape Town, if there are roaming animals, they can see it. They immediately contact the vet, and we intervene to make sure that there is proper control. Movement control, as Dr. Magatla mentioned, is very important for the control of FMD. But Dr. Magatla and the team here will indicate more of that. You also refer to the issue of herd immunity in terms of the 80%. The vets can speak to that. You ask how many livestock do we have? We have around about 500,000 here in the Western Cape, 14 million in South Africa, and that's why we are also looking for more vaccines. Yesterday, as we've earlier told you, we collected 100,000 at the airport, but certainly we need more. But there are also local production per week, and Dr. Mogale can indicate what is the total production per week at the local vets in Pretoria. But that is, as far as we're concerned, this is a very moving target. And we have brought also, as you indicated, private vets on board. But I think one other matter that we must not underestimate is the issue of, as Dr. Mogale indicated, during now we are heading for the Easter weekend, and I have consulted with the Minister of Mobility, Minister Isaac Seleko, and he has agreed to increase more visibility for traffic law enforcement, because this is also a time where we see movement of animals, and this needs to be taken care of. But with your permission, Chair, if some of those other questions could be answered by Dr. Mogale and Dr. Magatla. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Over to you, HOD, almost said DG.
Yeah, Chair, thank you very much for the questions. I want to thank my minister for responding to most of them. I'll deal with not the technical stuff. I'll leave the technical stuff to the Director Animal Health. I think the question that Member Bryant had raised, Minister has responded sufficiently to the questions, except to say that I think we are now going in the right direction, because I think the ARC has given us 12,600 doses, I think some month or so ago. And the plan now is to produce 20,000 per week. So that's about 80,000 per month. Is that enough for the country? Absolutely no. But I do think the fact that some work is happening is something that we should encourage them to do more. But I think that is the progress that needs to be commended on their part. And it is for that reason that for this current outbreak, we are relying on imported vaccines from Argentina, Turkey, as well as Botswana, that are coming through to us. The question that I think that were raised by Member Nkonzo refers to slide 3 in particular, I think a point was made when the presentation was delivered that that slide needs to be updated. It is exactly the information that comes from the National Agriculture in terms of the strategy. Obviously, these slides need to be updated almost weekly as things are beginning to change. I think by November last year, we only had one case in Gouda, which, as my director indicated, I think we had managed it quite well with our industry partners. And I think when the new outbreak came through, we were already folding stuff there, depopulating and all the stuff that that was necessary there. And I think if you look at how we managed it with our industry, I think it's something that I'm personally proud of. That together with the municipality, the Drakensberg municipality, we all pulled all our resources and sought to deal with the issue. With respect to Mebankondlo on slide number 4, that talks to reported cases that we listed 8. I think the requirement in terms of the law, you can only report to the World Organization for Animal Health on cases that had been so confirmed by laboratory results. Minister made a point that we have one laboratory, and sometimes it takes up to 90 days before you get the results. So the 8 that is listed here is that which has been confirmed. If you look on the slide that talks about the dashboard, which is slide 13, that talks about the 20 reported cases. That is all those that have been confirmed and also those that have just been dealt with based on clinical cases. Our approach is that whenever we see the clinical manifestation, we go in and vaccinate. We don't wait for results, because if you wait for results, by the time the results come through, many other farms are infected. So the approach now is that on clinical science, we immediately go in and begin to vaccinate. I'm sure Dr. Magadla may want to add some few information there. I think there was also a question that Member Kondo raised about the 15,000 dairy cows in and around Philadelphia, and the allocation of doses. Those were the dairy cows in the area that needed to be vaccinated. I think it's important to also underscore the point that, and this is the guidance we are getting from the ministerial task team, that the dairy breeds are more, if you like, vulnerable, are not as hardy as the beef heads. That's the information that we are getting, and I think the strategy is to target the dairy heads, and that is what is happening around that. And I'm sure Dr. Magadla might want to just want to reflect on that. In terms of state control vaccination, I think that's correct, Honorable Nkondlo. In terms of the Animal Diseases Act, the new act that was assented in the year 2000, there's not been any regulations yet in terms of that one. And suffice to say that the reason that the national government seems to want to centralize, I think it's also to protect South Africa, to make sure that we don't bring into the country vaccines that are not responsive to the current strains that are in the country. And hence, even in our discussion with them, we are not arguing that we go all out and buy vaccines unless it's with the guidance and the support of the national agriculture. In fact, all countries in the world approach diseases like FMD in such a manner, because if you bring other vaccines, you run the risk of introducing other strains in the country. So that is really the issue. In terms of whether there is a stalemate in the province, in terms of that arrangement, absolutely not. I think together with our partners, we seem to be understanding each other and working quite well to attend to the problem at hand, which is the FMD. In respect of the hold up, I responded to that it was indeed contained. And as to what then happened in this 2026, I think it's a matter that I'll leave to Dr. Magada to respond to, because she's got her own speculations in terms as to what could have brought the strain, but I think she will provide that information. In terms of the peri-urban livestock farmers, nobody will be left behind. I think all livestock in the province, be it smallholder, subsistence, commercial, will be vaccinated, because it is a requirement in terms of the law, and we're working closely with the municipalities. Minister referred to what we do every Tuesday, informing municipalities as to where we're going and what informs our decisions. Chair, you raised quite a number of questions, and I think most of those are the ones that my technical colleagues will respond to, except one on the 100 million rands that has been made available by the province. I can indicate that we have not been able to spend it as yet, because for us to spend it, we need to get concurrence from the DG in terms of procuring our own vaccines. But that matter is one that we constantly debate with the DG to the extent that we want to be allowed to use their own channels and probably procure 1 million doses for the vaccines. I mean for our livestock in the Western Cape. The issues around successive vaccination and all that, I think Dr. Magada will respond to, and whether the outbreak in Gouda was an informal or peri-urban, I think she will talk to that. The issue around 80% herd immunity, she will definitely respond to that. I think the strategy of South Africa is based largely on the Brazilian model, because in Brazil, they were able to follow the same trajectory, and they defeated FMD. What we are doing now is to have FMD with vaccine, and at a later stage have FMD-free status without vaccine. But Dr. Magada can talk to that. And I think the other issue around the hotline with sharing of information, Honorable Chair will certainly do that. Honorable Adams, I think the matter has been responded to by my minister, and they will attend to the cases that you are making mention of. Chair, with your indulgence, I want to hand over straight to my Director Animal Health to respond to the questions that we may have missed, or those that needs more technical expansion. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, HOD. Over to you, Dr. Magata.
Thank you, HOD. Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thank you, HOD. I will confirm some, and then I will add a little bit on some of the questions, but a number of questions have been responded to by the HOD and the Minister. Yes, on the World Organization for Animal Health, as the members of that organization, we can only report what has been confirmed by some form of a test, hence the 8 versus 20. And I would agree with the logic over the control of vaccine, going to how we would have managed the FMD between 2025 and now. As a state-controlled disease, there are set measures of managing FMD, and one of the most important being the movement control, the quarantine, and later on the vaccination, which keeps it as it is. But coming from the fact that we have managed the 2025 one, and with the 2026 one, there is a possibility that with the infection moving from the north into the Eastern Cape, then there could be infection either by transport. I initially mentioned that by transporting of the trailers or transporting of the animals, people in between the two provinces, or maybe by the some of the animals which were slaughtered, transported from other provinces. And then the outbreak in George, that outbreak was linked to the drought feed, which has been imported from one of the other provinces. So the management is still the same. We could have managed exactly the same, also attached with the surveillance. And slide 14, receiving 100,000 versus what is needed. We are receiving the vaccine based on what is received by the country, a proportion of vaccine from what is received by the country, and is divided to all the provinces. We have, yes, more animals, which is about, we need for this particular batch for this week about 115,000 doses. And having said that, some of the farms might have less animals than it is indicated, and we will know that we have covered some of those farms, and we will later prioritize them, the 15,000, if we cannot secure that vaccine. 2 successive vaccinations 2 weeks apart. Most of the vaccines we are currently using 4 vaccines. That is the ARC vaccine. That particular vaccine needs booster at the intervals of 6 months. So you inject it and you give a booster after 6 months. And after that, you give a booster every year. So there is no need of the booster, and it doesn't have a withdrawal period. And then the second vaccine, which is a BVI vaccine, that vaccine, you give it first 2 vaccines about 4 weeks apart, and then you give it every 4 months. So that again will be boosted in the farms which received that vaccines after 4 to 6 weeks, and up to 2 months would still be okay. The other 2 vaccines, the latest 2 vaccines we are using, the Dolvet and the Biogenesis Bago, they only need a booster every 6 months. And linked to that is the last one of the questions: how long do you have to wait to slaughter an animal? Most of them you don't have to wait, except the BVI vaccine, where you have to wait for 21 days before you can slaughter an animal. And the question on the 3-kilometer radius, how is it determined? You look at the center of the farm where there is an outbreak, and you count 3 kilometers. We measure the 3 kilometer radius. Some of the farms, you might cross over a farm, you need to include the whole of the farm, which you cross over. And some of the farms might be shared by the province, you need to inform the next province. And then the immunity, 80% immunity, that is an international standard. Scientifically, if you've got a virus infection, if you have inoculated or vaccinated 80% of the population, that virus cannot be transmitted further on that particular, you limit the transmission of the virus within that population, depending on the percentage of the population you have vaccinated. So with FMD, that is informed by that internationally. I think, HOD, I have covered all the questions for now. Thank you.
Honorable Chair, that's our response to the questions. I think we covered all of them, except to say that the meat is still safe and people can consume it safely. There's absolutely nothing wrong with our animal products. Thanks.
Minister and HOD, thank you very much, and Dr. Magatla for the responses. I think one question of mine was not responded to. I will be making a follow-up. I just want to see if members have got follow-up questions. Honorable members, I see a hand of Honorable Ngonjo. Okay, Honorable Ngonjo, over to you, ma'am.
No, thank you, Chair. I think my question on the municipalities and the bylaws, because I think with the outbreak, it helps us to understand the whole ecosystem of biosecurity and the management thereof between the province, national, and the municipalities. So I'm very much interested, and I think when OHOD concludes by saying our meat is still fine, I think it's a good point to mention, because I'm not sure the extent to which, just awareness raising so that panic and anxiety amongst consumers is managed, and one is not even sure the level of involvement of the consumer protection office, in this particular regard, to raise awareness just on consumers, but also as part of letting them understand. But my main question was around the municipalities, as I've raised that with the informality and informal sector within the farming space, there's been, I think, from the few engagements one has had, a not so good sort of feedback by informal farmers, to the extent that municipalities are able to understand and work together with them, not only on FMD, but general farming support. So I'm worried to the extent to which at this point, when there is a rollout, how is that managed with the different municipalities by the Provincial Department of Agriculture? So if you can just explain that, but also, Chair, to say, the question, and I hear that something becomes a case once it is confirmed, but clearly with what we have in front of us, the numbers are not necessarily numbering, because on one hand we're told that we've got 8 cases reported, and then there's also the 20 cases in as far as the other slide that shows the outbreak. So it's important also as a committee to at least be made clear of what exactly, from a data point of view, what are we dealing with and where is the main problem, and appreciating that the province is really proactive, working with industry in trying to curtail the effects of the outbreak. And one even appreciates this toll-free number, which makes ease of access and communication for those that would have identified or observed any challenge with animals around them. But I'm interested indeed on how this works, in terms of managing or monitoring movement, because indeed, as the chair was saying, when you talk about informal farmers, who have got livestock, that livestock is in residential areas. It's walking up and down the streets and roaming the streets, because there's no designated grazing land. And I'm not sure, once again, in conversation with the municipalities around the outbreak and curtailing the outbreak, how do you manage somebody who's got their own cattle in their own backyard or in some space that they've identified? How are you managing that? Because indeed, that free flow or roaming of these animals is what is the practice, given the fact that these are informal farmers who do not have access to land or designated space given to them by the municipalities. So this is my interest, to just understand how that actually works, and what are the obligations of municipalities if there is an identified outbreak, to actually engage the very informal farmers, so that you don't just get municipalities who just go using law enforcement, go in, and decide to just lay off, the livestock of farmers. Because one of the things we've been told by the informal farmers is that they are treated with disgust by municipalities and law enforcement, who do not recognize that this is their own livelihood, and actually it is their assets for some municipality to just decide that I'm coming, I'm laying off your animals without even following any process that makes me aware. And when you ask the due process, you do not get the information that is produced to confirm that indeed these farmers, like what we do with commercial farmers, and we're even working with Agri Western Cape to ensure that nobody just rocks up in a farm of a commercial farmer and just decide that there's an outbreak here and we are coming as the state and this is what we are going. So if indeed, as the HOD says, this is going to be a process of everybody, rules must be the same. Farmers must be treated the same, even if they've got, or they're operating informally. And that is my issue that I'm trying to understand through this process so that I am clear. And indeed, we shall communicate through the toll-free numbers, but also through either yourself, Minister, and your HOD, because we are also interested in ensuring that the outbreak is maintained in our province.
Are you done, Honorable Gondlo?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Gondlo. My follow-up, HOD and Minister, is relating to post-vaccination capacity. I did ask that specific question because, I mean, if you look at the way that you are going to follow up and obviously do follow-up vaccination, I think the question for me is the capacity to do that. What is the level of capacity? If there is a need of a capacity, maybe, as a follow-up answer, would you use some of the 100 million allocation or that you have got in order to capacitate that force that is going to help you, or maybe even bring in the private sector in that regard? So that's really a follow-up in that regard. But maybe a second question is regarding this ecosystem, because it is my understanding that agriculture works quite well with police, with transport, with obviously the municipality. And I mean, maybe, if you can just paint that picture around, how you work with police, with transport and the municipality. I think there was quite a lot on municipality side, maybe the transport and the police side of it. I see Honorable Ngondlo's hand is up again. Did you forget to ask another follow-up question?
No, it's actually a new question. From the response, I think that indicates the potential of the latest virus, which I think the doc was referring to, that it may have been transported, from the other North provinces. Maybe, Minister, in your discussion with the Minister of Transport, but generally within the transportation from one place to the other, is there a problem that needs to be fixed there? Because if indeed between the movement of animals, they could potentially, including the feed that has been mentioned as a potential risk, that there isn't proper a sort of inspection or checking, to ensure that they are virus-free. How are we dealing with that? Because I was just very concerned to hear that potentially that could have happened. And I'm asking myself that what exactly are the safeguards that are allowed within the regulations between the transportation of feed or of animals to check, or the part of biosecurity within that, and whether there is something that needed to be tightened given, now this particular outbreak as part of trying to cap this into the future. If you can also maybe speak to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, honorable members. Over to you, Minister and HOD.
Thank you very much, Chair, and to the committee. I have decided not to go to the cabinet because this is the first briefing to this committee. So I have asked that the cabinet excuse me. So it is better that I spend the time with this committee since this is the first thorough briefing. So I will remain on this meeting. In terms of the ecosystem, as you put it, and the role players are the South African police. We do this with them at, for example, toll gates. recently I went to the toll plaza of Tsitsikamma, and the South African police was there. Our state vet from George was there. The industry role players were there. There was also one person that is representing the wildlife industry, because you know buffaloes also get foot and mouth disease, and once a buffalo is walking around, that will be disastrous, because that is what has happened in Limpopo. Then not only the state vet, but we also use the private vet. The municipalities are all there, as well as the district municipality, and the district municipality, they run a district jog, for example, in Garden Route. And then in that case where I was, there was also not only Cape Nature, but also Sun Parks, the South African National Parks. They also assist us. So when you talk about the ecosystem, it's everybody involved, and sometimes it also represents some of the local neighborhood watchers or the rural safety units. They're all part of this. So, Honourable Member Nkontlo asked a very important question about meat safety, meat standards for human consumption. As he was talking, I think we must inform Mogale, perhaps Joanne Johnston, because of the Office of the Consumer Protector, if we can just also inform them, because they normally get complaints, is the meat safe? Can they eat the meat? And perhaps if we can also develop an infographic that the meat is safe. So thank you, Honourable Member Nkontlo. That is why I love you. That is a good input, so we can use that further. And then also, Honourable Member speaking about quite extensively about the bylaws. Now, my HOD is very clear on record. Many of these municipalities ask him, what about these roaming animals in their town? He told them in no uncertain terms, enforce your bylaws. If there are animals roaming around, please don't expect the Provincial Department of Agriculture to deal with issues that is within your legal environment. So it's the issue of bylaws, impounding. Some of the things that I'm considering is even a provincial pound law. There are certain specific protocols that they must follow. In terms of communication, Honourable Member Nkontlo, I've discussed with some of the vets, and they are using a very sophisticated system, because when you deal with a disaster like COVID and like the FMD, one thing you don't want to do is to inject fear. Remember, whether it's a small-scale farmer or a commercial farmer, all of them have fear. So I don't want the small-scale farmers. We need the assistance. We need the cooperation. So what our vet is, first, you must build their trust. And he has, for example, established a WhatsApp group so that they can get information, because you know what's happening in sometimes on the informal settlements. It's a lot of rumors, fake news, gossip. So he builds trust with the informal farmers so that they know this is not now to punish them. Because you don't punish people in an environment when they face a disaster. You help them. And this WhatsApp group is deliberately and intentionally and purposefully put there to build trust and see how we can cooperate with the small-scale farmers, informal farmers, to prevent the spread of the disease, and many are cooperating very well. Then the issue of the municipalities, they must work with us. They are in our jogs. And for us, when we vaccinate, for example, the informal settlements, they also get a tag, because this is part of the traceability. We must know who is the owner of that. So that is also very important. And Honourable Member Nkontlo is right. Roaming animals in the informal township is a big risk. Walking around, and we are using the municipal law enforcement. For example, what we've done in Mbokweni, there with Drakenstein, assisting them so that those animals do not mix with other animals, because that is a major risk. But Honourable Member Nkontlo was more concerned, I think, about the protocol with the informal small-scale farmers, how do we deal with them? The answer is threefold. Municipalities must do their law enforcement. Number two, you don't punish people when they face a crisis. You, under the circumstances, you see what is it that we can do to prevent the spread, and everybody must play a fair game and build trust in the relationship between the vet and the small-scale farmer. And thirdly, trying to build a database for the traceability. We're not there completely, but we want every animal that is getting a vaccine, that we, for the purposes of traceability, also do that. So thank you for that question, but I think Honourable Member Noko, I will now hand over to the HOD if there are any further issues that Honourable Member Nkontlo and others have raised. Thanks.
Over to you,
Minister.
HOD.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Minister. You've covered the issue of municipalities quite correctly. And this is what we discuss with the municipalities at all the jogs, because they are district jogs, which we attend at times 2 jogs per day. And also in terms of the ecosystem, I must also indicate that the provincial jog has been active, I think, for the last, if you like, 8 weeks already. And we meet stakeholders, and including SAPs and the districts, but also law enforcement in all the districts are part of that that ecosystem. Chairperson, you're raising a very important question about post-vaccination capacity and whether we would not be using the 20 million rands for that capacity. I must indicate that the provincial treasurer has been kind to us. In fact, we are in the process of recruiting 20 animal health technicians as well as 2 veterinarians. And I think that will help us to deal with the challenge at hand. But the exciting thing also is that the private sector, in terms of the private veterinarians, also have enlisted their services to then assist us. And we have regular meetings with them just to make sure that we are totally aligned. Your other question, Honorable Chair, was about how many animals. I think in your earlier question was about how many animals have been vaccinated. To date, according to the dashboard, it's just under 50,000. Based on the 60,000 doses or 62,000 doses that we have received. So we have this dashboard every day when I come to work. I switch my computer on. I want to know how many animals have been vaccinated. So that's what we're doing to track that progress all the time. I think the rest of the questions had been so correctly responded to by my minister. I don't know if Dr. Magata, you want to add anything that both minister and I would have missed.
Thank you, HOD. I think the one question was on the 8 and 20. Still, Honorable Nkontlo was not satisfied with the response to the 8 and 20, the difference between 8 and 20. I think the key word, Chairperson, on that on those slides is WOAH, W-O-A-H, because there are those which are reported to the World Organization for Animal Health, the 8, and then the rest 20 on our dashboard are all the cases which we continue to investigate further, including that 8. So out of that 20, 8 is reported to World Organization for Animal Health. Thank you. Because that was confirmed by lab testing. Thank you so much.
And Chairperson, I think the one point, given where we are as a country, we consider every farm as infected farm because we are vaccinating 80%. So that is why we don't even wait for results. Once we see clinical signs, we take blood sample, and we immediately vaccinate. So at times when the blood results come, we already are vaccinated. And that's really what we are doing. And we are really pushing forward to reach that 80% herd immunity. Of course, with the arrival of the other doses that the National Department is currently working on, and then we'll then vaccinate those as and when we receive them. But of course, on the other side, we are also pushing to be authorized to procure our own vaccines. That's really the ultimate, because then we control the tools. We then can deploy our own state veterinarians, our animal health technicians, as well as our private vets across the province, who have all raised their hands to say, we want to work with you and support you on this journey. So that ecosystem is quite useful, and therefore we want to take advantage of that momentum and vaccinate as quickly as possible and ensure that we reach our herd immunity for the province. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister and HOD. I've got just two last questions. Members, if there are any other hands, you please welcome. It's the final round. I've just received a message that one of the foreign national wanting to export either our meat or our livestock. He says, good day, thanks for your call. I had to return his call. We need the farm to be registered with WOAH, World Organizations of Animal Health, as an FMD free. Then we can export animals to Pakistan. I have the Karoo Livestock Export Farm, Odzone, Western Cape, which is FMD free. So how then do one advise people asking such questions with regards to if they want to export? And obviously what I asked was for him to check with his country whether they have got export protocol with South Africa, but I've also shared the details of DG to engage him in that regard in terms of whether they have got the export protocol of animals, live or products. The other question is, obviously the Disease Act require a quarantine, of animal infected by controlled disease like brucellosis and FMD. So I think the question is, obviously, then with this process, you will not be requiring any quarantine because it's all animal or 80% of animal head that is going to be vaccinated. Am I correct in saying that? I'm saying this because obviously the informal, sector animal, they roam the street. They don't have really a home. So even your 30-kilometer radius might be violated because they will move closer to, and they carry this, what do you call this, sputum, whatever, and they get in contact with the other livestock that are maybe in a commercial farm, and they end up even infecting them for that matter. So I'm just asking if there is absolutely no need for a quarantine farm. If there is a need, do we have quarantine farms in the province? Thanks. I see the hand of Honorable Gondlo. Over to you, ma'am.
Can I ask, in this process, because I understand vaccination is like prevention. So as the HOD says, the intention is to vaccinate all the animals. And indeed, my worry is it's very easy for commercial farmers because they are registered end-to-end. How are you going to be able to drive that with the informal sector in particular, where some you don't necessarily have their data available at municipalities. But secondly is to say, if that is prevention, if, for example, a case gets to be identified, what then happens? Does the situation, as the chair was asking, you then take that particular animal or head of animals and they are moved to the quarantine site, as you say, that you then have to, after clean and disinfect, or are all those animals gets to be laid off? I'm trying to understand once then that particular case or disease has been picked up, what then is the process? If you can just help me understand that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I see the hand of Honorable Stoffel. Over to you, Honorable Stoffel, and welcome. I did not hear you indicating that you were present today, but welcome. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Am I audible, Chair?
You're audible, ma'am. Can go ahead.
Thank you very much. Chair, mine is just to appreciate the good work so far from the department and also from the MEC. Yes, we are faced with a kind of big challenge and a disease. Chair, the thing that I want to put my emphasis on is in terms of the districts. Is the districts really capacitated enough to deal with this issue? Because I'm coming to the point that Member Nkondlo have raised about these animals that is in the streets, that is all over. And you don't see really within these municipalities, various municipalities, there is really law enforcement who really take care of this issue and who really cautious people and who really, so hence I'm asking, because really, Chair, if you look into this area where I am, we're very close to this dairy farm of Amalitstein. And as we have observed, Chair, anything can happen because there is no really proper control. Hence, I'm asking, is there really capacity enough in the districts to deal with this matter? And also, Chair, is there maybe any method that has been used really to bring this awareness to the small farmers within our areas, where you gather these people, where you inform them, because you can go to small farmers now and ask them, do you know about this foot and mouth disease? No, we don't know about it. No, we just saw there on TV. People is not really aware about this thing, what is happening, especially within these small areas where we are staying. And for us, it's a big concern because there is movement within these big farms by the same people from these areas because they are staying there, there's families of them. And so I think there's some more education needed to our people around this issue. And maybe, Chair, pardon me if that was been answered, but I just want to put emphasis on it. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Stoffel. A valid point. Thank you. Over to you, Minister and HOD.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will hand over to the HOD. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Member Stoffel in terms of education. If you look at our 21-point plan, one of the pillars is basically about awareness campaign and creating information, making it available in communities. I must also indicate that since the outbreak, we have approached a number of radio stations, particularly in the districts, where our vets and animal health technicians on regular basis engage with communities there in terms of what to look out for and what this disease is about, but also the Farmers' Days are continuing as part of our extension and advisory services to the citizens. I think as to whether the districts are fully capacitated, I just want to say that on weekly basis, we engage with all municipalities in the province, outlining our strategy, where we're going. And the response that one gets in those meetings is that all municipalities are totally committed and wanting to work with us to tackle the outbreak. And from our end, in terms of the animals, in those areas, we've got what we call mobile crash pens, because you don't need to have your own crawl. We bring our own crawl and inject those animals. And I think the classical example is what we did in Visante Kraal. The over 400 animals that were vaccinated, they belong to more than 10 owners, but we had to bring our own mobile crash pens and attended to that case. So we'll continue to communicate, and I think we also would appreciate whatever support that the chair and honorable members, wherever you are, you could actually extend the message of the fact that we are out vaccinating. We work with municipalities and no one will be left unattended, because it is in our interest that all animals, at least 80%, if not all, are vaccinated so that we reduce the viral load and therefore they are not transmittive to other animals. Chairperson, in respect to the issue around the Pakistan export of meat, I would request that you pass that information to us, and I think Dr. Magada and team and the export office will guide that person in terms of what to look for, and also if there are contacts already with Pakistan that the team can advise on. The issue around the quarantine farms, I would like Dr. Magada to respond to that, but also a very important issue that Member Nkontlo raised around the process. What do you do when you get told that there are clinical signs? I'm paraphrasing it, but I think it's an issue around that, and Dr. Magada took note of that, and I wanted to respond to those two areas, Chairperson, and I think that's it from my side. Thanks.
Thank you, HOD. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, HOD. On the issue of quarantine of animals, and the issue of quarantine of animals, we've got two types of vaccination. We vaccinate to respond to a case or an outbreak in this manner. If we are responding to a case, then we put those animals under quarantine up until we receive the results, and we also vaccinate the 10-kilometer radius. But if we are preemptively vaccinating, we do not put those farms under quarantine. We just keep the records of the farm. Thank you so much. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much. Minister.
And the clinical case, Doc, once you find a clinical case, what do you do?
Okay. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, Honorable Nkontlo. I missed that one. If you are vaccinating, when you go and vaccinate, one of the process is that you check all the animals as you vaccinate. If you find a suspicious case or a clinical case, then you immediately put that head under quarantine until the results come back. And if it's a vaccinated head, and when you come back and test, you find a clinical case, then you put that head under quarantine again. We quarantine the head, not an animal, because this disease is transmitted very quickly within the animals or within the head. So it's a head disease, not an animal disease.
What do you report if you see signs? What do you report if you see signs?
If you report, if you see signs, you report to your nearest state vet, or you report on our online, and our state vet or animal health technician will immediately go to the farm where you see the signs.
Thank you, Dr. Magada, and thank you, Mayor Bongiso, for helping me to chair this meeting. Honorable members, I think we came to the end of our deliberation on this particular matter. I am going to ask the Minister to make closing remarks. And before I do that, I just want to say, Minister, thank you, and thank you very much. HOD, thank you very much. And Dr. Magada and Mayor Bongiso, really, thank you very much for all the hard work that you're doing for our province. And obviously, you know, it goes without really saying that really you have put a lot of work behind this. And thank you for your presentation as well. Over to you, Minister, for your closing remarks.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the members, and thank you also to the department for the various responses. I think whenever the committee needs some further updates, we are very happy, because I think it is important that the standing committee be regularly briefed or updated about this situation. So we are very pleased that we can have this engagement. I think three very important matters. You have seen the figures that Ms. Bongiswa Matoti has given. She has given you the number of applications for veterinary exports, license applications. That is what was very important, because currently with the situation with foot and mouth disease, you can understand the economic impact and the economic implications. Because of this meeting and because I met the national minister this morning, I was unable to brief the cabinet this morning about the economic implications of foot and mouth disease and the economic implications of the war in Europe, because that is one of the major markets for us. But we will certainly look into that, and when we are ready, I will also brief this committee on that very important matter, because we are responsible, as you know, for 58% of South Africa's primary agricultural exports, and we are looking into this. The risk profile is changing every day, because we also have the issues of auctions. As Dr. Mukhale indicated, we did meet with the RMIS in, I think it was in, I was in at the show in Riversdale. That was a very important meeting that we had with them. But I have also asked all the agricultural shows not to have any livestock present at the shows, the Landbou Skoue, because that is the area where you can fast spread the virus. But for now, I'm quite happy that the 21-point plan that the department has developed is currently being implemented. There are monitoring systems in place, and the slide that Dr. Magatla showed of those 5 points, I think that is what we are currently using to also guide and monitor the implementation of this. The big success, I think, that we will see coming through is when you have industry role players in the job that was established by Dr. Mukhale, because they find solutions to every problem in the job, and instead of pointing fingers. I have decided we are not going to entertain any politics in this matter from other industries and other organizations. I am going to focus on vaccination on the ground where people's livestock and livelihood is at stake. And for us, that is very, very important, because we want to remain focused and resolute in terms of dealing with this particular matter. And I concur with Dr. Mukhale. He said, we are determined to root out foot and mouth disease. Although the situation was at a much smaller scale in Gouda, that's exactly what we did there. But for now, we have tabled before the cabinet a 21-point plan to fight foot and mouth disease, and we are very determined to implement it as we're currently doing. But this is a moving target. Things can change anytime, but we are focused and we are confident that we will get the necessary vaccines as we have established a good working relationship. And one of the members of the ministerial task team nationally is also sitting in our job, and therefore we can also benefit from the advice that we are getting from that and building constructive relationships. So thank you, Honorable Member Chair and members of the committee, and thank you to Dr. Mukhale and Dr. Magatla and Bongiswa and the team. And I'm also, just for the record of this meeting, also joined in this meeting by the head of my office, Mariki van Jaarsveld, and my media liaison officer, Daniel Johnson, is also in this meeting. Thank you, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you, Minister. HOD, Dr. Magatla and Mayor Bongiswa, you are really welcome to leave, or you are excused. And thank you really very much for the fruitful engagement. We have learned quite a lot from this deliberation, you are free to leave. Honorable members, we go into resolutions once the minister and the department has left us. Honorable members, are there resolutions? Can I see by show of hands if there are any resolutions that we need to note? Honorable Ngontlo.
Chair, I would want to move that we request that the department, whilst this process of the FMD is still with us, provides us with updates, and we either get monthly updates, but where we can, even if it's quarterly, if it's still around, we ask them to come back. Secondly, I think the economic impact, because now we just had to deal with the process and what is it that they are dealing with. So I think at some point we really need to get a full account of the economic impact of the disease, including closing the loops, although I think they didn't go much in explaining to me how are we dealing with the overall transport system that also is a risk, that transport the disease. So I think I'm interested, I think, in the second bite to just understand that system from this particular crisis and things that they are learning and what ought to be improved. The last one, Chair, I think we definitely, maybe in the next engagement, we may need to request a joint with the local government where we actually invite either these affected municipalities, so that we answer what Member Stoffels was asking about the capacity of the municipalities, particularly in ensuring that, one, they are able to support our provincial department efforts, but also the type of bylaws that they have, in as far as the informal farmers are concerned, are really enabling, because as it has been confirmed, the risk is actually even more higher in the informal space. So if you do not have proper regulations, because it's not going to be assisted to this thing by just impounding, animals, because it's going to create unnecessary anxiety and potential protest. You want a system that is working, that also informal sector is able to understand their own obligations in assisting to curb the virus, because it's affecting also their own livelihoods. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Ngontlo. Just before I move to Honorable Stoffer, I'm just thinking that monthly, we basically have 2 meetings per month. It might not be impossible. Can I move that we consider a quarterly engagement around this issue? If that is in order, then we can note as a quarterly engagement. And secondly, on the municipality, I would prefer that we get the JOC to brief us. I think in the JOC, we have got obviously all the role players, meaning the security, the police, the municipality, and obviously the transport is in there, because transport does the what you call the patrol, the stop and search and so forth, whereas the police obviously they do what they need to do from livestock theft and so forth, and municipality obviously will be part of that particular job. Is that in order that we invite the job to also be part of the briefing? Okay, I see a thumbs up from Honorable Stoffer. Over to you, Honorable Stoffer.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think my point has been covered by Member Nkondlo in terms of the municipalities, but I want to extend it even to the district. I think there is a report, or whether we will then say it's a monthly report or a quarterly report from the district, whereby they will indicate to us in terms of the awareness that they have done within the various municipalities, and also how many people, how many small farmers did they invited to this awareness campaign themselves? I'm not sure, Chair, whether I'm just sponsoring it to the committee to consider for as a resolution, because I've heard that the HOD said that they work closely with the district. So the district is also playing a very important role within this within this campaign. So I just felt that the district on its own must also submit a kind of a report to say in terms of how far are they with the awareness within these whole districts. And I'm not just talking about the district where I am, I'm talking about all districts where I think it will involve all small farmers also. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I think your point is noted. Honorable Bryant.
Thanks very much, Chair, and also thank you again for setting this meeting up. I know it was quite short notice, but it was very, very important, I think, that we had it and that we heard from the Minister and his team. I think a couple of things that stood out for me that we should maybe follow up on. The first one is the matter around the training of vets. I know it has come up previously, but the fact that it is a national competency, along with some of the other issues that have been raised, I wonder if it's possible to put in a request for a briefing or an interaction with the national department at some stage. I'm not sure if that request has gone in previously, but I think it could be very beneficial for our committee to have an opportunity to ask those questions and get an update. Yes, the JOC is important, definitely. And I support your proposal of a quarterly JOC. I think it's, we've got so many meetings on at the moment, the scheduling is incredibly difficult. But notwithstanding that, I think we can also potentially put in a request for a briefing with the National Department. I don't see why not. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, honourable members. I hope Shireen noted all the resolutions. Honourable members, we've got two items to look at. That's the consideration and adoption of draft committee minutes of the 5th and the 8th December 2025, and finally, then we've got the consideration and adoption of draft committee quarterly report October to December 2025. May Shireen, do you mind just flighting the minutes? Oh, I see the minutes is up. And I hope we all read the minutes. Can I ask for a proposer to adopt the minutes? A show of hands. Proposer?
I propose,
Honourable Bryant. Honourable Bryant is proposing. Seconder? Can we have a seconder?
I second, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Ngontlo. Any matters arising from the minutes that maybe we need to look at? Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you. Honourable members are happy. Can we proceed to the next set of minutes? This was the minutes of the 8th December 2025. Any mover for adoption?
I propose, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder?
I second.
Thank you, Honourable Ngontlo. Honourable Bryant move and Honourable Ngontlo second. Thank you very much. Are there any matters arising? I see May Shireen remove the minutes. Okay, we are done with that part. Can we have the quarterly report for October to December. You mind taking us through, Shireen?
I will, Chairperson. I'm just having a delay on my side with the scrolling. But
Okay,
basically, the quarterly report for this period contains information pertaining to the annual reports and then the money bills. There it moves now. And a couple of other meetings which the committee has scheduled. And I'll just go through the meetings. It was a quarterly performance in addition to the annual report and money bills. It was the meeting, the tourism stakeholder meeting in preparation for the tourism season. It was the briefing by Stats SA. Members would also see the decisions, resolutions taken. Those were all communicated to the relevant departments and entities. We have received a response to all the resolutions and recommendations, and these have been forwarded to all members. And the year concluded with the adjustment appropriation bill. There's the attendance registers. I'll pause, Chair. Members can have a look.
Members have received the documents. If they note their omission, they can always contact you to correct.
Right, Chairperson. There were no meetings postponed. There was no legislation. There were no oversight visits during the period, no cluster visits, no international study tours. And there were a couple of invitations extended to the committee. Air Traffic and Navigation Services, DDAT, Crew Life at Sea. There were 2 invitations. We did not deal with an appropriation bill. We dealt with the adjustments appropriation and the annual reports, and then the budget for the committee as at the 31st of December 2025, Chairperson. And that is the report.
Honourable members, there's the report. Can we get a mover for the adoption of the report?
I move, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Bryant. Thank you, Honourable Ngondlo. I see your hand is up.
Chair, I wanted to check, do we adopt the report before we discuss it? If there's any question.
Apologies. I think we adopt and then we move. Aren't we going to move for the matters arising from the report, or do you want to deal with the report first and we adopt? I mean, I'm in your hands, members.
Chairperson, we normally deal with the report before adoption.
Okay. No, we can follow that.
Or any matters arising before, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Over to you, members, in terms of engaging the report.
Okay, Chair, yes, thank you, Chair. I wanted to understand or to get an update on the study tour, because we've been speaking about the study tour, I think, since we started. And then secondly, I see there's an available budget of 36,000 and the financial year is ending by end of this month. So what happens to this money? Is this the money that would be now either requested for a rollover, or it's money that's going to be handed back to finance as unspent by this committee? So just wanted to check that on my side.
Yeah, with regards to the study tours, we have done what as a chair, obviously I've done what you requested me to do, which is obviously putting a report that we assisted by Awongiwe in putting together areas that we are interested in. That report was presented to the Speaker, and we haven't really gotten a feedback regarding as to what was the decision around that. So there is a trip to Germany, which is a cluster trip, apparently. That's the way I understood it. And I established whether this is a study tour based on what we have requested. I was told, no, this is not a study tour. It is an institutional invitation to the Speaker. And obviously they ask him to bring some of the committee, some of the portfolio committees to accompany the speaker. So that's what's happening with the Bavaria trip. Obviously, there is an institutional relationship between the Western Cape Provincial Parliament and the government as well. So that is the situation. But from this meeting, we will do a write-up to do a follow-up. I don't know, maybe Shireen can also advise. I know that there was a communication that you have written to Stimela. Was there any response in that regard?
Chairperson and committee, I actually wrote it to Mr. Stimele and to the deputy speaker who's in charge of international travel, and there's just been no response. So the trip that you are speaking about, I'm not sure if that takes the place of a study tour, but what I am aware of that there are no other committees undertaking international study tours for the next financial year, which is now April through to March next year. But I can follow up again, Chair. I've been following up regularly, and I'll ask for your assistance as well in getting an answer.
Okay, I will also do that. Thanks very much. The other question was with regards to the budget. I'm sure we might have gone over the budget now with our George, obviously, Sona. Do you have an indication as to whether we still have this 36,000 or is it was it spent during the Sona?
Chairperson, I can confirm that the 36,000 and I think plus an additional 80,000 has been spent during the State of the Province address, the cluster oversight visit, as well as the standing committee's oversight visit to Vaikro.
No, thank you very much. Honorable Ngondlo, those were the questions. I think they have all been answered.
No, Chair, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Bryant, can we still take your hand for having proposed that we adopt the minutes, the report?
Of course, Chairperson, after those inputs from Member Nkondlo, I'm more than happy to propose again. Thank you.
Seconder?
I'm more than happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, thank you very much. We came to the end of the meeting. Really, thank you very much, Shireen. Thank you, Nomfundo, and thank and honorable members. Really, thank you for your contribution. Awongiwe, thank you very much for always being part of us. And Dade Adams, it was good to see you in our committee and in action. Mr. Thank you. Mengonzo, thank you. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right, Nomfundo, thank you very, very much.
Okay, Shireen, thank you.
Okay, have a good evening. Can I exit now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sure, bye.